This time, Unknown Not the Mind Probe, episode number 80. Boo hoo. Boo hoo.
Welcome to not the Mind Probe. I'm so scared right now. Do people even that was the Blair Witch Project? Does anyone? No, whatever. It wasn't even good when it was good. But this is good.
This is
my
good.
segues are getting a lot faster.
We are good.
This is good
this
here.
Is good.
This is a podcast. It's a good podcast.
Yeah.
Where we watch and rank every single Doctor Who story ever. And I've got some. This is the segment. I usually insert news in between these two sentences here. The big news for me anyway. Is
and by the way, this happened a month and a half before you were listening to this. Right. But yes, go ahead.
I'm terminal. No.
God.
I'm announcing it here. No, I have secured, and Mr. Pro, my husband, has secured tickets to Gallifrey, the big LA convention in February. Fun. So I will be going to LA. So if you've always wanted to meet me, probers, and you go to the giant Doctor Who convention in LA, now is your chance. Your chance will be in 8 months.
Is it hard to get tickets to that particular convention?
It is hard to get into the hotel. So we got into the host hotel. We will be staying. I am actually on Jodie Whittaker's couch.
Wow.
I paid a fortune. No, so I'm in the host hotel. It is the LA. It's the hotel immediately next to the airport. It's not in the most exotic part, but it is a huge Doctor Who convention. They usually have at least one or two doctors. This past one, they did have Jodie Whittaker, who's the 13th Doctor, and the 6th Doctor, Colin Baker. They haven't announced the guests yet because it sells out usually before they do that. So anyway, yes, it'll be very exciting. I was thinking about this today. I was like, I should probably attempt to add. I'll maybe make up a little card, about our podcast that I can give to people. But I think it should just be a white 3x5 index card that just says Mind Probe on it. I'll just hand it to people in Times New Roman black. And people were like, "What is that? Did I win something?"
By the way, I just wanted to point out that you have decided that the place to insert news into the show is prior to the moment where we even say our names. But your name is John Grant. You're a lifelong Doctor Who fan. You've been watching it for 38 years. My name is Porter Mason. I've been asking me to watch Doctor Who for 26 years. A couple of years ago, I finally said yes. We should probably find his place later in the show. Just to at least...
once the script starts rolling, I lose control of the storyline.
That is exciting. Though.
We can't fix this because no writers. So,
I'm asking because that's far off in the future, but who knows? Maybe me and Mrs. Probe and the Problings could head out to LA because we need. My sister-in-law lives in LA. I'm like, we should go visit her at some point.
And our friend Sean, who is a big-time TV producer, is out there. And to bring this back to relevance. Probers, years ago in the early 2000s, this is when Sean entered the television production industry. I repeatedly said to him, this is prior to 2005. I said, you should produce Doctor Who because that would be a mega hit. And he dismissed me as if to say what a ridiculous idea that is. And now he is a heroin addicted loser.
He's a very successful television producer and would not have been the right producer for Doctor Who. I don't.
No, it would have been I would have probably hated him for life after that. So, but we'll see him in LA, and maybe he'll make it. Maybe if you go to LA, we could do a guest. We could do an actual. That would be great from Gallifrey.
I don't know if we could ever strap Sean down to watch an episode of Doctor Who. I mean, maybe he has. I don't know. Well, anyway, look. Here's the show.
Well, look.
Look. We watch 2 Doctor Who stories. We go through the new series in order, and then Doctor Who. God, things are falling apart. I just referred to John as Doctor Who.
As you
by the way,
been waiting for years.
In one of these this episode, I liked that the whole Doctor Who game of saying I'm the Doctor Who is changed to I'm the Doctor. Doctor what? It's like, I love that. Doctor What is the new version of Doctor Who. John, not Doctor Who, but John, who
not yet.
The reason I said that is because we really thought this was going to be John's regeneration and he was going to become Doctor Who in the 14th Doctor. It's not going to happen, and it's upsetting
because of woke culture, but we can go into
that's right. And John was canceled for murdering children. I mean, well, I guess I should canceled, or I should more say like convicted and sentenced to prison.
But nobody arrests which children. It's just apparently any child, like a baby Hitler, which is the new baby Yoda.
That is, boy, this is gonna be a good episode. John pairs things with classic Who. What are we watching? What are we doing, John? What are we watching?
What are we doing here? We moved on to the next in the Matt Smith line of a succession to the very quick short title Hide.
What?
It's Hide. It's Matt Smith and Jenna Coleman and Jessica Raine, who we've seen before actually, and in a 1970s set haunted house affair, which pairs very naturally with a 1970s set haunted house affair with the Fourth Doctor and Leela in the very interesting, and it's a fond place in my heart actually, image of the Fendahl.
All right, we're through with all the nonsense.
Yeah, right.
Now we're just really going to be really serious.
Suck the fun out of this show. Just get straight to the straight dope that people want to.
Well, we're going to start with, we are going to be serious because we're going to be seriously frightened for these episodes. The first one is, yes, we said Series 7, Episode 9, the 235th of the 300 currently active Doctor Who stories, some of which may be inactivated.
Some have been retired, but
at any point. We have Clara, we have the 11th Doctor. It was aired on the 20th of April, 420, 2013 on BBC One. And what else? It's a horror. It was horror-y.
Very horror-y.
And
a haunted housey horror-y
minute episode that they pack a lot into. This 45 minute episode.
It does have a lot going for it.
Let's listen to a clip.
She's coming. Okay, what is that?
It's a very loud noise. It's a very loud, very angry noise.
What's making it?
I don't know. Are you making it?
Doctor.
Yes.
I may be a tiny bit terrified.
Yes.
I'm still a grown-up.
Mainly, yes, and?
There's no need to actually hold my hand.
Clara?
Yeah.
I'm not holding your hand.
Very, very reminiscent of the famous planes, trains, and automobiles scene of those aren't pillows.
Those aren't pillows. Yeah.
It played less for comedy here, but really could have been. I think something missed there. We really could have gotten something there.
So you got a screwball comedy vibe to some of the Dr. Clara moments here. Yeah.
So, okay. So here's what happened. Here's what's going on. So we're at, I think we said, the 1970s, 1974. We're at a creepy house in the English countryside. We have a professor and his assistant who are clearly into each other, but I'm not going to pressure them. But I mean, there are clearly some vibes there.
Yep.
And so he's got a bunch of ghost hunting stuff set up. And when you're getting into ghost hunting, when you're getting into
gadgets,
what's the word? Not pyrotechnic. The word is failing me. Anyway, paranormal measurements. There's always lots of oscilloscopes. And there's lots of sound things. You're measuring static. You're listening for static. It's always fascinating to me that, I don't know, the realms that we think the ghosts are in have to do with these very specific areas of science that, like, there's going to be weird sounds.
I've always wanted one of those things with the little needle just weigh like the size. They're everywhere on movies.
Yeah,
but you don't. Why isn't every home have one?
I don't know.
I mean, come on.
Right, so that's a good question, because seismograph, really, you're just talking about the mechanism of it, which is the same for a seismograph or a lie detector does the same thing. So I don't know. It's listening to they're looking for weird variances in electromagnetic activity. They're all set up, and then what they do, we see at the beginning, is that she, the assistant, I mean, we call her the assistant. She's actually the main, even before the doctor gets there and sort of declares her, you're actually the central thing here. She kind of already is, because he's set up all the scientific stuff to measure ghosty things, and then says, hey, go over there and tell the ghost to come. And so she kind of goes through a process by which it seems predictably she's able to get this ghost to come through, and he takes photographs and does this thing, and they capture photographs of what seems like, a standard ghost photograph that you see, which is a blurry image and lots of actual ghost photograph. It's usually like it's an overexposure or something, but it's like, oh my god, look at this, there's some spirit from another realm. And I think this has been done on a couple episodes that I've seen through Mind Probe of Doctor Who, where often ghost or paranormal is explained through some kind of scientific or alien or time travel, in this case, activity. And I just always love it. I don't know, I always love that because I think it's fascinating, and I do genuinely think that there's probably some aspects of ghost things that people feel in the real world that maybe are linked to some weird scientific explanation that we can't fathom yet, but it is linked to that. And actually I have heard a thing about aliens and ghost sightings being linked to time travelers, the central reason being they can't get into paradoxes, so they are obviously keen to hide themselves from us. So
it's like a duck blind.
So anyway, so they're doing this, and then the doctor and Clara show up, and again we have another Clara. Other than one little moment, pretty straightforward. This isn't like a Clara's plot has sort of fallen to the back.
Is this the dare me moment? Is that the one thing?
No, that's interesting. I want to talk about that, but no, the
TARDIS doesn't like her.
The TARDIS doesn't. I guess there are a few in this one. Okay, no, I take that back.
So everything you said is wrong.
Everything I said is wrong. No, but the one I mentioned where he talks to the medium and says, like, "What is she?" But you're right. There are a couple.
Oh, right, yeah. A little bit of that.
You know what? Then even more to this episode than me saying. So they show up, and the doctor's immediately like, "Hey, you were doing interesting stuff." We kind of meet more about the characters. The professor apparently was in, which war was he in? He talked about him being in a war.
Secret agent. He was implied he's a secret agent. It must be. Well, you're right. It's the 70s.
Okay. Well, anyway, he was in some bad stuff, man.
Highly decorated secret agent. Yes, the doctor immediately knew everything about and blabbed. And the guy's like, and he's
right. His blank ID card that he showed him to be part of MI whatever.
One of them.
Yeah, we found out the professor was espionage, killed people, and one of the things, and so what's sort of why he's here is he kind of wants to get in touch with, I don't know, to help make amends with someone who's dead, like, because obviously that's what people think of ghosts are. Now, ultimately, what we find is that this medium is not obviously a ghost medium, not obviously, but she's not a ghost medium, and she's not channeling into the afterlife, but she is somehow able to channel this woman who is actually will become the first time traveler, or I guess first human, to travel through time, who's sort of caught in a pocket universe nearby, but somehow the medium, and I'm forgetting her name, Emma, is able to contact her, and so they say, hey, well, we're gonna, knowing all this, the doctor, I'm gonna set up some stuff. And I love the part of the setup is you're gonna talk to her, we're gonna open up the portal, and I'm gonna tie a rope to myself and jump in. I love it.
It's Poltergeist.
I love that.
It is this does hit every trope from horror movies, but yes, watching this one, as I was watching it, I was like, I think I must have missed it the first time around. I was like, oh, they tied Craig T. Nelson to a rope and threw him into the closet, and he pulled up the kid. It's Poltergeist. It's great.
Well, and yes, but it also to me is the perfect. This is Doctor Who to me, which is tons of explanation about pocket universes and the science of it and wormholes and stuff like that. But how do you travel through them? Hey, tie a rope and jump in. It's like, so it's like a bunch of backing that has total truth to it and interesting, could be true, but then we're going to skirt around the aspect of like, well, if you actually went through a wormhole, your entire like physical being would have to go down into individual atoms to pass through it and then recreate. How is that even possible? It's like, I don't know. That part,
very slim rope.
Put a rope on and jump, and it's fine. So anyway, he does go to the other world. He meets the time traveler, whose name is very interesting. Hilla Tokorian. Great name. Great science fiction-y name. So meets her. They get back. In the meantime, they see this monster who's this sort of gruesome. It looks like a body that's been photoshopped and gnarled around.
Yeah, so you're twisty and
grotesque.
And looks evil.
And is able to get the time traveler back, Hilla, but the doctor's stuck. And of course, we're worried about that. And so we ask Emma, can you make this, like, it clearly took a lot out of her to do it the first time. Can you do it again? She does again. In the meantime, Clara goes down to the TARDIS, which we established in a short scene at the beginning, as you mentioned.
Not wild about it.
I didn't like her. And
she kind of yells at it. And she's like,
yes. And also, by the way, before this happens, what I was going to mention, I'm going to hear more about the dare thing. She has an aside with Emma, Claire does, and Emma's like, and is like, hey, you're going to get with the scientist, right? And she's like, oh, I don't know. But they said, but you and the doctor, are you together? And she's like, oh, no. And the assistant says, oh, good, because something's wrong with him. He's very cold. Like there's something cold in his heart.
He's lying, or he's hiding something from you or something.
Right.
Like
and
that.
So she then for the rest of I feel like the episode is trying to sort out what's going on there, because clearly the woman is very they talk about her, she's a super empath, like she can really sense things in people. Anyway, Claire goes down to the TARDIS, talks her way in, and the reason why you can't just travel through the TARDIS to the pocket universe, they try to explain, is you can do it, but you have a very brief window that you kind of have to pop in and out, and it, like, you can be there for seconds, so it's really not worthwhile. But so she goes for it, wants to save the doctor. She hurtles through. Basically, the doctor reaches out and grabs the TARDIS, comes back, we save the doctor. And one of the things I really liked about the episode is that then it ends, essentially, it's solved. We're back.
Yep,
Hill's back.
Good. Yep.
Okay.
Monsters
and
are
then
behind.
He looks up and we see an echo of shadow of the monster in the creepy house. And the doctor realizes, oh my gosh, these aren't monsters, or I mean, they are monsters, whatever you want to call them. But like, what it is that there are two of them. They're trying to get back to each other. It's a love story between these two, separated beasts. And so they're like, we got to go back and join these two monsters together. So they do that.
They're like, hey, sorry, can you do that one more time? Sorry about all the pain.
And she does. and
nice.
I think that I really like that, because again, it is adding, like, they could just leave it there, but it's like, well, why should these things, they're just weird looking things, why should they be tortured by being separated? They bring them back together. And then we also find out that Hilla is actually the reason why they have a connection, in addition to her just very, empathic ability, is that there's a generational connection. They're like 3 or 4 lines down, I think.
Yeah, she's probably their great grandchild or something.
Right. Yeah. And that's it. And then there's lots of good moments. These two actors are really good. You really buy both their characters and the romantic connection between them. And and then, like we said, all the moments between those characters and the Doctor and Clara, but also between the two of them. But what was the dare moment? What were we talking about?
There was something. It's a great little scene, and it does come into Clara's character later too. Actually, in the next series after this, but where he's asking her to do something that requires her to take a risk or something like that, and she says she's scared and she's not going to do it, and he's going to back off, and then she kind of says, dare me to do it. And he's like, okay, and that's what gets her to do it, right? And so it's like this thing of like, she wouldn't do it but if she's sort of challenged to do it. Yeah, she has a lot of great little character moments in this, and sort of get a little bit of distrust of the Doctor. This is by Neil Cross. He wrote The Rings of Akatan, and as we talked about that episode, he wrote Luther. And it is a classic haunted house story. Every haunted house cliche in the book: thunder and lightning, creaking doors, cold spots, the sound. I mean, it's ghost hunters meets the poltergeist meets everything else. But done in a really fun way. Jessica Raine plays Emma, and she played Verity Lambert in Adventure in Space and Time, which we've seen. She's also excellent in it's The Devil's Hour, which is a mini series, about 6 episodes on Amazon Prime with Peter Capaldi, who's an upcoming doctor, and she's very good in that. It's a very good story, which I highly recommend people. And it's just a fun, solid story. The it's not stretching the BBC's budget. They're like, haunted house in the 70s, no problem. Here we got it. It's a cool house, and you've got some nice Matt Smith. I think it is. I was thinking about as I was watching it, because we talked a little bit about how we're kind of. You were saying like, it's kind of like Clara's great, but now I'm kind of maybe Matt Smith is starting to wear a little thin or something like that. But I think after watching this, I was like, I don't think he's wearing thin. I just think he actually makes it look so easy that it's no longer, you're just kind of like, oh yeah, and then Matt Smith's going to be amazing. But,
yeah, he's great. So.
But yeah, it's just watching it, it's like, because I took a step back and I was like, oh, he's just so good. But he's always delivering at this very high level of, he's got the scene where he's scared in the forest, and he's he's always delivering at such a high level that he almost spoils you, and then you're just kind of like, ugh, well, where's his great speech? Like, why is he doing his great monologue? However, this story really plummets with the super controversial moment. So at the end, he brings out a blue crystal. And he uses that to focus her as a second. And this is a reference to two third Doctor stories, The Green Death and Planet of the Spiders, neither of which we've watched yet. And the crystal is from a planet called Metabilis 3. But in the episode, he pronounces it Metabolus. And let me just tell you, the news groups were buzzing about this one because it's not believable anymore. If you can't even pronounce correctly Metabilis, then what's the point anymore?
So as I remember, this began a 7-year period where you stopped watching Doctor Who, right?
In rage, I rage quit Doctor Who. No, but this people did comment on this, of course, and I think they even, because of course Stephen Moffat being a fan and stuff, they all knew he mispronounced it, and then I think he even addressed it in in a lengthy full-page apology in Doctor Who in the New York Times. But yes, they even debated apparently redubbing it because Moffat was like, they're gonna know and they're not gonna be happy. And then they were like, oh, we didn't have time or budget to redub the pronunciation. So there it sits, a blight on the Doctor Who.
Wow.
Yeah. Sorry, folks. I'm sorry to bring this down, but that's
apparently this was because of just the filming order. This is the first episode that Jenna Coleman filmed as Clara.
Oh,
it's interesting.
Yeah. Well, she's very good in it.
She's very good.
We should hire her. Hire that woman.
Yeah, and I did want to, and then by the way, I mentioned, but I didn't mention what her answer was. But the doctor has a private conversation with Emma to ask, "What is Clara?"
Yeah, right. What's
because it's like, you seem to be in touch with all these things. But what is she? And she's like, she's a girl. I don't know. She's a normal girl. Because remember, when I say not getting back to her plot, what I mean is we sort of launched into this with the idea of she's died.
Yeah,
she's the impossible girl, right? Yeah. And we haven't advanced that in the last two episodes.
Yeah, he's still trying to sort of feel out what she's doing, or what she is.
What her dill is.
Yeah, what's her dill? What's her dill? Anyway, whatever.
Well, why don't we move on to Image of the Fendahl? Okay, so this is season 15, story number 3 in the Classic Who. It is the 94th of the 300 currently active. That's my favorite new phrase. Doctor Who stories. It is blissfully 4 parts. I love when Doctor Who classic episodes are, less than 5. I'm happy with less than 5. If we can get a 2-parter, great. Although, to be honest, to be fair, very few of the 2-parters are that good. I don't know. That could be wrong.
True.
My feeling is usually the 2-parters are so light that it's like probably should have been a 1-parter or a 15-minute episode.
Like that Black Orchid one that was like the first episode they just played cricket. The whole first episode.
I like that one, but yes. So who do we have? We have the 4th Doctor and Leela, who I like, and also she wears short dresses. It's exciting, but apparently, I'm always like tainted by the fact that you told me that he didn't like her, like they didn't get, and he didn't like her, but I think he was just like done and kind of wanted to move on.
His quote was like, "It's very difficult. It's very difficult to act with near naked people."
Oh, I liked her.
Anyway, become since great friends. So,
good.
Yes.
Well, why don't we play a clip here of Tom Baker from Image of the Fendahl?
Don't do it, Stein!
Oh, shut up, you fool. Let him electrocute himself.
He will kill us all. Listen to me, all of you. He is a madman. You must stop him. Stop him now before he plunges everything into chaos and death.
I'll plunge you into chaos and death if you don't shut up.
You don't understand. I see now what will happen. Max, listen. The doctor asked if my name was real. Fendahl man of the Fendahl. But don't you see? Only for this have the generations of my fathers lived. I have been used. You are being used. Mankind has been used.
Great.
That's another line I've been trying to work into, everyday work conversations. I try to end meetings like that. Don't you see? Mankind has been used. And they're just like, oh.
Do you think that was like the fifth take where they just kept pushing it? Like, we need more. We need more.
It's like, go over the top.
I think he came in hot with that one. I think that's the first take.
When you're already playing it with that sort of cod German accent. Yeah.
Now, who? Just trying to get the names here. Was he just talking to Max there?
Max Style and then Adam Colby.
So
the characters are just great stock characters all around.
Yep. Well, yes, because Mac, that guy, I love his accent because he makes me realize that there's this British tone, or this British guy who do the vocal fry of like Valley Girls, because it's like, oh, I can't believe you even telling me this. And it's like this deep guttural thing. And it's so, God, the way they talk, that particular type of talking is so annoying. It just gets right on your nerves. I mean, purposely, like they're clearly kind of trying to poke
bad
you.
Guy. Yeah, it's the bad guy talk. Yeah.
Okay, so
I'm interested to know how you describe this plot.
Yeah, I mean, it's
a lot of plot.
It's an interesting plot. I don't know. This story was interesting to me. But okay, we're in a village, there's often a lot of science going on in villages, but there's a village here in Fetchborough, apparently.
Yeah.
And we have these scientists working together who are testing on some artifacts, including a skull that they got, and it's a little unclear who. It seems like Dr. Fendelman, who we just heard scream to the heavens, is sort of, to me, this is what I felt. It was like that he's sort of this eccentric rich person who's hired the scientists to come do this thing and is funding them and saying like, I'll do whatever, but you have to focus on this. I want you to.
He's an electronics expert. He's like a
yes, but he is funding it. I mean, he's also the kind of. You're right. He is an expert in this.
But it's a great line too. The villager is describing him or whatever, and he says, "Oh, they say he made all his money in electronics, but that doesn't make sense because he's not Japanese."
Yeah, right. So they're studying this stuff, and then we see right from the beginning, just there's images and there's sequences that show like this weird thing happening with the skull and reverberating with the woman Thea, one of the scientists. So then the doctor and Leela show up. So they get there, and then what we find is that it reminded me of another. So was it the Daemons? But where there's a cult going on in the town too. And
there's a coven. There's always coven.
Coven, yes.
Yeah, and I mean, we've all encouraged you to not join covens, but you insist on
doing it.
And like, more covens, everybody. But there are a lot of covens in Doctor Who.
And there's a older woman who keeps being referenced, like
Ma Tyler.
She's still part of the old ways.
Yeah.
And yeah, so we get that there's like some sort of cultish behavior going on. Which apparently is just rampaging through Britain. I don't know. Is this one of these ripped from the headlines things? Like during Doctor Who this time, they just kept talking about it. By the way, assume this is present day, like 70s, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, I think it does align with, I think, because K9 and Company, which is a lost episode of No Not the Mind Probe. We've never aired it because Porter was so disgustingly profane in it. But Coven in that, a lot of Covens in the 70s Doctor Who, and I think it is, we talked about this a little bit, it is, I think, referencing that sort of 70s, 80s satanic panic kind of thing, where we all thought the world was filled with Satanists who were all trying to
right, because wasn't it a thing that they would often be like, oh yeah, if you go off in the woods, you'll find all these remnants of like sacrifices and rituals that were happening, and everyone just thought that was just sweeping. And
they're always talking about like, oh, you know, the last witch finder in the UK was fired in like the 60s. Like, I mean, like, it wasn't like, it's just one of those, it's one of those weird.
Well, so anyway, this mother is like, I don't know, she's connected with this, and what we find is that what it really is that there's this race of aliens who are trying to manifest themselves back into existence, and they're called the Fendahl or the Fendahline.
Well, the Fendahl is the skull, that's the core, and then the Fendahline are pieces of it. It's a gestalt,
and which is explained very well. That was
there
very helpful.
A lot of explanation in this story.
Well, okay, so what these things are, like you said, they're a gestalt creature that individually, what they're aiming to do is they feed off of life, I guess, itself, which is fine as an explanation, but they react very shocked to it. And then I wanted to be like, right, but don't most life feed off of other life? Like, but I guess they're meaning it in a more like mystical way of like literally the essence of life. Yeah, exactly.
Like, yes.
Where it's like, well, lots of things kill other things, and that's how they survive.
Bit about like, the body is decomposing as you watch because they've absorbed every ounce of.
I guess it's interesting, but it's sort of like, okay, well, I guess fungi do that. Like, I don't know. Anyway, they have evolved to this, and they talk about, oh, this, this evolutionary dead end happened where this Fendahl creature
cul-de-sac,
and that the kind of the reason for the Coven is that, like, yes, they have to, in order to come back, they have to form into one. So did a good job of sort of saying this is why it feels like a coven. This is why you have to have these 12 people come together, and that's why the Fendahline are sort of trying to manufacture this, because that is how they will come back to life. Now, why don't they know about this? That's where we get into some plot where I'm like, I don't know. He said a bunch of stuff, but basically, why don't we know about them? Well, they were in the Gallifreyan system, right? And it was a planet there that there's no record of, because
the fifth planet
sent themselves off into a time loop, or they just went. I don't know why.
Like, trapped them. So it was clearly a very powerful entity. It was going to destroy everything. It was death itself, and so the Time Lords trapped them in a time loop. And by doing that, erase.
And he says, and they're really not supposed to do that.
They're really not supposed to do that sort of thing. Yes.
Yeah. So,
we're bigging up the enemy here. It is a big, horrifying, big bad.
So, okay. So then Fendahl knows this the whole time. He's trying to stop it. Sorry, Fendelman.
No, he just thinks so. They found the skull, they excavated the skull, and then he's trying to create a machine that can basically, you could just watch time on TV, the time scanner. But then he realizes that there's something about the skull that is the source of power, because it has a pentagram is embedded in the.
So this was not what he was aiming at with his science. It happened, and then he's reacting to it.
Yeah, it just happened by accident, and he's like, "Oh no!" And then Style had some idea that because and the Doctor hints. It's not exactly clear how Style figured it all out, but it's hinted at. Like, the Doctor sort of talks about, like, the Fendahl is you can hurt the Fendahline by shooting rock salt at them or throwing salt at them.
Sodium chloride disrupts their energy.
Yeah, and he's like, that's probably the origin of throwing salt over your shoulder. So the implication is, it's like, oh, there's all these things about the supernatural that actually come from knowledge that's passed down, erased memories from us of the.
Fair enough, but you know how else I might know to put salt on it? Because it looks like a huge slug.
Also,
like
that.
Yeah. Oh, right. So when they form one, and it just looks like a big alien slug, and it comes in again, I think in the 4th of 4 episodes, and just the slug shows up, and they're like, throw salt on the slug, and then anyway, and then
I also love how the Fendahl core, who is played by Wanda Ventham, we'll come back to, but is this woman painted all in gold or whatever.
Yes,
it's very clear that she has her eyes closed.
I like that. Yes. They painted big cartoonish eyes. over her eyelids. I don't know. They make it work. Okay, so right, she's lost, right? I mean, she dies, right?
Yeah. We don't. Only Colby lives.
I think
who's a great character, Adam Colby.
No, Stahl lives too.
No, Stahl kills himself.
Oh, then I'm thinking of
Jack
okay.
And Colby's the blonde guy, and then Jack and his mother, the old woman, they all live. Remember, they
I
all
like
hide
Jack
under the
too.
table.
I thought he's a great like villager, just kind of
right,
bloke
like,
guy.
well,
like,
this is happening.
Come on, mom. Like, wait, and then like just I like him.
But I love Colby. He's such a great because he's sort of sarcastic and funny, and he's
That's who I meant. Who has the vocal fry? Then it's Colby.
Oh,
I thought it was Stahl, but like he's what is always.
There's a great moment of like they find the body in the woods, and they're all having the talk in the kitchen or something like that, and you know, Fendahl is like, oh, was it a violent death or whatever? And it's like, and Colby's like, well, you know, the look on his face is horror. He didn't die easy. And then Max just goes, it's just never easy to die. And then Colby just goes, well, thank you, Max.
Well,
great character dynamics between these four. I thought it was great.
Yeah, there's some fun stuff, and then they throw a bunch of salt on the dead ones, and they I don't know, he rigs something up to destroy the skull.
There's a lot of technobabble.
Skull in the box, and then he's like, I'm gonna throw it into a supernova later, don't worry about it.
Yeah, it's cool for me.
And we get out of there, and there's also a lot of Doctor and Leela like dynamics, and because she's kind of a shoot first, ask questions later, or stab first, I guess, because she always has her knife out. So
but I like how she has her and Jack have a great little relationship. Like he likes her. He's kind of nice when he first meets her. They're on the same page. Yeah. This is by Chris Boucher. He wrote Robots of Death and The Face of Evil, which is when we first meet Leela. This is a beginning of the Graham Williams era. So this was Philip Hinchcliffe, who did sort of all those sort of gothic horror stories. This was supposed to be the era where they were going to be like, hey, we can't do, they're a little too horrifying, everyone, for the kids. And we do some lighter ones, but this seems to be a holdover from that, because it's definitely very sort of in that gothic horror mode. It's got great, as I say, those characters are great. And they're all stock characters, right? I mean, there's nobody, it's not like these are deeply complex, like original characters. But I love them because I think they're just all very like, Adam Colby is the sort of square-jawed hero guy, and then Thea Ransom is the, you know, damsel in distress possessed by the thing, and Max Style and Fendahl and all, and like the mother and all that stuff played to perfection, and just they do that stock thing really well. Tom Baker's kind of reining it in, I have to say. In this one, he's not as crazy as he often. It is a very talky episode. I think he offers like several different lengthy it could be a radio show. I mean, there's a lot of just talking and explaining and a lot of exposition and stuff like that, which if you have to watch it a lot of times to really follow. And they're all really interesting ideas that that they're spelling out. I will say the dialogue, this is a must do.
It takes a while to get to like I said, it takes a while for the slugs to come out. It takes a while to get to the coven.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like you feel like,
well, the Doctor and Leela the whole first episode are kind of off to the side, right? Everything else is going around. There is the incredibly cheating episode 1 cliffhanger where Leela goes around the corner and opens the door, and then you just cuts to a shotgun firing at her. And it looks like, oh no, Leela. But then when they do episode 2, they've re-edited it so that she steps aside before the shotgun. It's a very cheap. But speaking of the dialogue, so I'll say this is this episode. I have quoted in an academic paper. This is a book called The Consumer Privacy Handbook. And I wrote it.
The YouTube viewers, John just held up the book.
And I wrote a paper with my colleague at work, Courtney Bowman, a paper called A Marketplace for Privacy, Incentives for Privacy Engineering and Innovation. And I use a quote from Image of the Fendahl.
What is it?
It is the I was making a point about how it doesn't matter what people what tech companies say is important to them. It's what they do. Communication. And so I used the quote from Ma and Jack talking, where it's like, well, years ago people thought the Earth was flat and it were round, and she says, but they behaved as if it were flat.
Right.
So that is my opening.
That's what mattered.
So that is Doctor Who. I had to persuade my co-writer to allow me to have a Doctor Who quote. I believe actually the footnote even says one of the writers is a little overly obsessed with Doctor Who, but they left it in. Very proud of that. And I do remember this as a kid. I remember this as being scary. I thought this was a creepy story. Oh, I should say also too, Thea Ransom, the woman playing the Fendahl core, that is Wanda Ventham, who we saw in Time and the Ronnie as one of the really bad 7th one, with the as one of the birdies or bird lizard people, whatever. And she is Benedict Cumberbatch's mother, which I think we talked about back in that episode. But she's very good. She's very good here, and sort of again typical sort of there's a damsel in distress kind of being possessed by the thing. But yeah, so the lore around this one is that apparently when it was announced it was happening or whatever, this was announced by to the Doctor Who Appreciation Society, which is the big fan club. Someone was talking to someone and said, here's, this is the story coming up, and the fan heard it as the island of Fandor, not the image of the Fendahl. And so for a long time it was believed that the island of Fandor was a missing Doctor Who episode.
I was watching television, including Doctor Who, when some things came up that happened more than once but two. They had the themes. There were Doctor Who themes. There were the themes. I don't have any more than that, but Monster Mash.
It's a theming smash. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Theming smash. It's a favorite of John and I's. Mm-hmm. We wrote a brilliant comedy sketch years ago that mainly had to do with one person's quest to make Monster Mash the national anthem.
Monster Mash should be the national, and that was the only point the person made.
Was the only point. I think they got called to Congress. I think they got to go on to anything. Anyway,
I think the only reason I like that sketch was because it was going to be such an easy one to do. It would just be, you could just have stock footage of people at baseball games standing up or crying at funerals or whatever, and just overplaying the Monster Mash, the Monster Mash.
I love the Monster Mash, but again, it's a very scary song, so that's why I bring it up. We are adherents of the repeating themes here in No Not the Mind Probe. We like to talk about topics and moments and ideas that thread through Doctor Who and our very culture. John, what did you want to discuss with these?
Let's talk about horror. I think we've talked in the past about and look, there's 80 episodes, folks, so it's possible we're going to retread some old ground here. But I think to slightly different. I think in the past we've talked about whether Doctor Who should be scary or not, and how scary it should be, and that's exciting. But let's deconstruct the horror genre here, because I think these are both episodes that I think would sit squarely in the horror space. But then as often is the case, which is on No Not the Mind Probe, these concepts that seem second nature to us, when you actually start to think about and define them, it becomes much more complicated. So what makes horror? What is horror for you? How did you define the horror genre?
Why I'll say that I don't like it. I generally don't like being scared. And so what I think of the horror genre is that a primary part of it is that you're supposed to be frightened. That's what's supposed to inspire in the audience, that you are frightened and unsettled. Yes. And I don't like that feeling. Okay. And so I don't generally see, I've seen some horror movies that it's recommended, this is a really good movie, and it is a horror movie, but it's really good. I mean, the most recent example I can think of is not Us, but the guys for Jordan Poole's movie, the first movie.
Yeah.
I can't think of it, but I'll look it up. But for some reason I can't think of it.
This Is Us. No, that's
yes, that's right. Scary, emotional. They're so.
I'm frightened of my emotions. I mean, my therapist.
I just did Jordan Poole, who's a basketball player for the Golden State Warriors. Jordan Peele. Am I saying anything right here? Oh, I don't know.
Do people come to this podcast for information? Because you shouldn't. You shouldn't. About Doctor Who, yes. Everything. What was
anyway,
what was the first horror movie you ever?
Get Out is a horror movie, but like, and it is a horror movie. I mean, it does have elements to it, but like, there's a whole movie that I liked about it. Or The Shining is like a horror movie, but like I can watch it. But generally, there's also just, people who like horror, so they will watch a movie that's just like, there's just lots of different new and exciting ways to scare you, and I just don't like that feeling. So to me, the audience being scared, like as a point, as a goal of the movie, that's pretty much it. Like, as long as it's doing that, to me, that's a horror movie. But maybe I'm wrong. Like, because if it's just a thriller, that's a little different.
Thriller, right?
It means you have to be scared. It's a certain feeling of like, you be scared enough.
But is often a supernatural or a monster? Like, so, so like an Alfred Hitchcock movie, that's suspense, thriller,
right?
And I mean, at the end of Rear Window. Sorry, folks. Spoiler alert for those
for Rear Window.
Who haven't seen it in the intervening 70 years since it came out. Jimmy Stewart is attacked in his apartment by Perry Mason. I'm not getting it exactly right, but that's roughly it. And Raymond Burr, and and it's like that. But to me, that is not. Also, the setup of a helpless person in an apartment being attacked by someone who wants to kill them is also the setup for like a Friday the 13th movie. But I don't see them as the same thing. So there's clearly some differentiation of supernatural but all the Friday the 13th is later became supernatural. I don't know, what was your first horror movie? Do you remember the first horror movie you saw?
I probably didn't see it, but the ones I was aware of were Friday the 13th
and Nightmare on Elm Street.
And Nightmare on Elm Street.
Because I think in the 80s, commercials were allowed to be a lot more scary. Like, I was terrified by those movies, and I never saw them either. But
was the Nightmare on Elm Street? That's Freddy Krueger.
Right? Yeah.
That's the one that really, because it was like he comes into your dreams, and to me it just seemed like, oh god, that's genuinely frightening. Like, what if you're in a dream and you can't wake up? And that sounds so scary.
The first horror movie I saw that I wasn't too that was frightening and definitely did moderately traumatize me, but was also somewhat manageable, was Jaws, because I was like, and Jaws is a very good movie, but it is a horror movie. It is a good one. It's not super. Well, the shark is kind of supernatural. I don't know, but at least when I was like falling asleep and I was like, well, Jaws can't get me here because I'm definitely not in the ocean, so I'm okay.
Yeah.
The first horror movie I saw that I liked was Scream, which I saw in college. I avoided horror movies like The Plague.
That may be one of the few horror movies that I have seen in the theater. I saw one of the Screams. I think.
And it's scary, but it's also making fun of the genre, so that made it for whatever reason that was. And there's a whole element of gore to a lot of horror movies, and gore and jump scares and all that kind of stuff.
Scream is a good example of, you're right, it's making for the genre, and there's very like kind of funny moments and clever moments throughout. But when you get to the end of Scream, mainly, and maybe there's a sequence in the beginning where there's actual like murdering and stuff going on, I hate it. It makes me viscerally like I just can't. It surprises me that people enjoy watching it. I don't know. There's some thing that people get from it where they're terrified, and then there's a release of it, and then they're okay, and it's fine. And it's just terrifying to me. I just hate it. I just don't want to see that, and I don't want to see the gore. But yeah, some people love it.
I think the thing.
By the way, there's also the schlocky horror things,
right, to
the point of the gore, where you could watch that. You're never really feeling like anyone's in danger. You just there's it's like the silliness almost of, maybe it's not silly, is wrong to say, but there's something about the gore and stuff that people take it to an extreme. And I don't know. They enjoy it. I don't like those either. I don't think they necessarily scare me, but I don't
like sadism for the sake of it. So like the Saw movies and all that kind of stuff I'm not into. I don't like the Friday the 13th movies or anything like that. And I don't like and the Friday the 13th movies, I think, illustrate this. I don't like nihilism in it, right? So Mike always makes fun of me about watching like Criminal Minds or like which is a very intense TV show. Like if you watch it, it's like, oh well, this is on network TV. But what I appreciate about it is like they always get the bad guy, right? And like to me that is very satisfying, right? This terrible thing happened, but then at the end they caught the bad guy, and so that the Scream movies they always catch who did it. And there's always an end. Like some of the other ones, it's just like let's just slaughter a bunch of people, and then the movie we run out of time. We can't. They just came in the movie. Hey, we've run out of time, folks. We've slaughtered about 25 people here. We're out of time, but we'll be back in a future sequel, right? But so I guess, but like we're talking about sort of violent slasher movies here. So slasher is a separate genre, clearly, because what we're talking about here, Image of the Fendahl and Hyde, neither of which are slasher movies. But Doctor Who, of course, is scary, as we've said. But Doctor Who's not. We would not call Doctor Who a horror series generally, and even these are not particularly horror-y.
Going to Hyde, particularly, my one. I don't think there are a lot of horror movies that are like this, but I do like creepy things about ghosts. Like I can watch stories. Like I liked Hyde because, not just because of this, but they got into the other thing with the time travel. But before that was even happening, and they were just showing this creepy thing with ghosts. Like I like that. I just don't like when it then goes to like, oh, there's a scary idea that there might be a ghost here, and by the way, someone's been disemboweled and murdered. And I'm like, oh God, like that is. But like just this, I like shows. For example, I used to like to watch those shows. I guess I don't know if this was on Unsolved Mysteries, but it feels like that same era where they do shows about like we went and saw this ghost. There might be a ghost here. There's no way to know, but here's some creepy pictures, and we set up video, and you can hear a crackling here. And what is that? And like you're
like ghost
really
hunters
give like that idea that raises the hairs on your arm of like, oh, what was that? What was that? That I like. I don't mind that thing. I think that's interesting. But like once it gets into like this person's now been terrorized and they're being killed, and I don't like that. So Hyde didn't have that, right? They were in contact with the ghost. The ghost wasn't hurting them. It was just like, what is this thing? What is going on?
It's a mystery.
That I like. But that would be horror, right? A ghost story. I mean, that's
right. Horror. I mean, that is the fundamental horror story would seem like it, right? Yeah.
Like all ghost stories don't have to be, I just don't want people to get hurt.
People, stop it. Okay, well, good. We've solved horror. Good job.
Okay, well, great.
Done?
Okay,
moving on.
All right, now, John, there are 300 Doctor Who television stories currently active at this time.
Yes.
Those are the active stories.
They've been talking about decommissioning several.
Yeah.
But I think so far we're keeping them all in the rotation.
Here's what happens. Every time this comes up in Congress, one of the stories is in somebody's home district.
Right.
And, it just keeps getting tacked on.
The Doctor Who BRAC process is notoriously
and then
difficult.
Or what a lot of times happens, I think the entire Fifth Doctor was decommissioned. But then it went into conference, and it got, it came kind of
right on. Yep.
Right back on. Well,
carry on. Good inside political jokes for our British audience.
We have ranked 158 of these episodes. We're going to rank 2 more.
We're going to do it, and we're going to continue to do it.
So I'll start with Hyde. I really liked it. I decided to rank it pretty high. I didn't put it in like the top.
Devil you.
It's not like my top story. It did remind me of Blink.
Oh, yeah.
In an interesting way. And I ended up putting it not too far below it. Blink right now for me is number 12. I put this as number 14.
Wow.
I put it right below Time of Angels, Flesh and Stone, right above Father's Day, which is one I really liked. And actually, it's kind of reminiscent of this one. And I ultimately thought, you know what? I'm going to put it above Father's Day. So I ranked Hyde pretty high. Matt Smith continuing to have some very highly ranked episodes. Image of the Fendahl, I really enjoyed, but didn't really hang together for me in terms of the plot. Like I said, the performances were fun. I loved the grandma and the son. I liked a lot of it, but the scientists bickering and just it all didn't hold together what was going on and whatever. So I ranked it not super low, but fairly low. I ranked it 108. I put it right below, I think, some of the stuff with the River Song stuff that was frustrating us. We ranked Impossible Astronaut, Day of the Moon, and The Wedding of River Song right next to one another, or I did, at 106 and 107, and I put it right below that, just above Terra and the Zygons and the Androids of Tara and the Ark, but just below, like I mentioned, the River Song ones, and then Battlefield, Deadly Assassin, whatever. So, like, just more in the bottom end of things, not like I can't watch this, but just sort of like, not my favorite. Could have been better. But yeah, there's some nice stuff in it.
Yeah. Well, once again, you've really screwed the pooch.
Oh man!
So we do very much disagree on. So Hyde, I've got it number 39. I've got around the Ark in Space, Planet of Daleks, Power of the Daleks, Robots of Death. It's in there. Solid story. Nothing that offends me. It does not anger me.
It's not that far off from mine. I mean, I have it ranked a little higher, but that's not that far off.
But no, great story. Matt Smith, excellent. Clark, excellent. Cool story. I like the nice twist at the end. It was engaging throughout. Just a good, solid story. Image of the Fendahl is up higher on my nostalgia. I think this is on my nostalgia.
Yeah,
I've got it up at number 18, actually. Just below Fitz and the Doctor. So what it's a clever story. It's I think there's a lot of really interesting ideas in there. I love I think all the characters, like I said, there's nothing that's like clever to say about the characters. It's just like, here are all these archetypes. We're going to put them all together. I'm going to make these interesting. And it was interesting when I was watching this for this rewatch. It was a Saturday afternoon, which is when I watched classic Doctor Who, of course, as a kid. So there's already that moment going on, and then a thunderstorm came through as I was doing it, and it's just like, it is that perfect atmosphere of it. It's a little creepy story, and it's very classic Doctor Who. It is. It does. There's a great. It was. I think it's an old Doctor Who magazine article or something, where somebody's talking about that. They were the Doctor Who fan, and and their friends and other people had not watched much Doctor Who, or had watched it but then grown out of it or something like that. And he was over at his friend's house one time, and it was Saturday in the BBC, when it was originally broadcast, and he convinced the friend and the friend's family. They were like, let's watch Doctor Who. It's going to be on. And they were like, oh yeah, we like it. And it was episode 1 of this. And he just goes, when I was watching it through their eyes, of just because the episode 1 is just, it starts out and it has this scene of them talking about the skull or whatever. And, one of the lines is like, I accept without reservation the results of your excellent potassium argon test. And he's just like sitting there. It's just like this clunky dialogue of all this plot and stuff. And he's like, I appreciate the Image of the Fendahl now, but watching it through other eyes, it was very painful. But for me, it's a solid one. Just pulling out from, if people remember from last episode, we were calling it the Doctor Who. So now we've got the 3rd and 4th Doctor ones.
We're looking at John's holding up. What's the name of the magazine? Doctor Who
magazine. Yeah. Actually, it's Jet magazine. It's just they've ranked a lot of interesting Doctor Who stories. I don't know why. Image of the Fendahl is where is it? It's around here somewhere. Wait, they didn't rank it.
No. Unranked.
Yes, it's number 22
of.
Which is right squarely in the middle. There are 41 Tom Baker stories, so it's right squarely in the middle. It's had gone down a little. It was 98. It was at number 19. It's in 2014. It was at 24, but now it's come up a couple spots to.
Well, I mean, you have it
to 22,
significantly higher than that.
Much higher. It gets away on nostalgia. But I think there's, and this is, I think, why Hyde works too for me, is that I think there is something about the Doctor in a haunted house, but there's a sci-fi explanation to it that just it kind of feels like this sits at the heart of Doctor Who, right? That there's sort of this this conventional genre of things, and then this alien comes in and adds a sci-fi twist to it, and both of them kind of have that same feel to them. So
I love that in Hyde. I don't know that I saw that in Image of Fendahl, but so I'm putting this into the central computer here of the Mind Probe, and it's an Image of Fendahl. So Hyde ends up at around 18 because we both ranked it. Like I said, you ranked it relatively high, and I ranked it up in the top 15. So it ends up in 18, just below Vincent and the Doctor, just above Army of Ghost Doomsday. But Image of the Fendahl I found interesting because I ranked it 108, you ranked it 18. So it ends up in the middle. It's at 64, tied with Amy's Choice. But more interesting to me is right near it, tied for 61, is Terror of the Zygons, which we almost ranked identically. I ranked 109 and you ranked 16. So is that a similar kind of nostalgia one?
Right. It's similar. Tom Baker,
Sarah,
and that it is squarely in that Saturday afternoon thing for me. So yeah. Yeah, that it tracks, folks. It tracks.
Well, look, if you don't like these rankings, you can sit and spin. But you can also go to mindprobe.show and really dive into them deeper. And maybe you'll find out that you don't dislike him as much as you thought you did. I'm Porter Mason. This is none of the Mind Probe. No, but you can go to mindprobe.show. You can also please subscribe to us. Tell your friends about the show. You can go to subscribe to us on YouTube, subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, whatever you want, Spotify, whatever you want. Form a coven
of people, and then if you get enough people together, you can actually summon Porter or I into corporeal existence in your.
We would appreciate it if you're in a coven. Can you get everyone to subscribe? I know sometimes you form a Gestalt person and use one iPhone to listen to your podcast, but get each of the individual pieces. Yeah, we got to up the numbers a little bit.
Yeah.
So you could do that, and you can also check out the rankings, and you can also check out our watch order to find out where we've been, what we've watched, if you want to go through an order, along with the podcast, but also what's coming up next. So, John, episode 81 of the podcast is coming up. What are we watching? What are we doing?
Wow. So, moving on in the Matt Smith, the Clara era, we have the Journey to the Center of the TARDIS.
Ooh.
Which obviously, as you can guess, is a parody of Pride and Prejudice.
Oh, okay.
A great book. Note, everyone, for our across the pond friends, that's going to be the centre of the TARDIS.
No, the
centre.
Wait.
For Americans, the spelling will be the correct ER. And so we're going to explore we're exploring the TARDIS, which also links quite handily with another Fourth Doctor Leela adventure, The Invasion of Time, and you're going to be excited, Porter. It's a 6-parter. Oh yeah,
good.
Every minute is essential.
Well, 6 parts of Leela, so I'm happy.
It's true. Yes, a nice
barely
Leela.
naked people.
Yeah,
exactly. I remember in 6th grade when we went to the boys and the girls separated. We explored the TARDIS. And we really
right.
You're told to you have to explore your TARDIS. You have to really.
You want to get comfortable in this space. You got to be able to work this space.
Our TARDIS ourselves. We read that. I remember. We're really just It's nothing to be embarrassed of. Your TARDIS.
No, you just got it, and you got to accept it. And everybody's TARDIS is different, and that's okay.
Not everyone's TARDIS transports at the same time.
Yeah.
You should go to mindprobe.show for real.
You probably